From the will they won't they drama of You Smell Soap to the breathometer getting banned by the FTC, these are the Shark Tank deals that failed miserably. The show's investors have a pretty solid success rate, all things considered. But with You Smell Soap, they wasted a ton of time negotiating. Megan Cummins was kind of done dirty here, because she had a pretty decent idea for a luxury soap company. I mean, it might not be the most original concept in the world. How many companies are making fancy soaps out there again? More than I can count, that's for sure. But regardless, Cummins thought she'd gotten her big break when Robert Herjavec promised her $55 grand for a 30% stake, along with a $50,000 salary that'd keep her bills paid while her company grew. Now, not a lot of people know this, but deals made on the show aren't necessarily set in stone. Investors can change the terms at any time and even back out of the deal entirely if they change their minds. That's basically what happened with You Smell Soap. Cummins spent 6 months desperately trying to contact Herjavec, only for him to switch things up and offer $50K for half the company instead. Megan eventually had to bring another investor in, but by that point, it was already too late, and the company never really got off the ground. If Robert had given Megan a straight answer, her company would have had a fighting chance. But honestly, a lot of Shark Tank's failures happened because the investors suddenly changed the terms of the deal. Just look at what happened to Show No Towels. Shelley Ehler is a classic entrepreneur because she saw a problem in her own life and invented something new to fix it. Her company basically made towel poncho hybrids, which supposedly made it easier for parents to get their kids changed at the beach or swimming pool. Lori Greiner offered Shelley $75,000 for 25% equity, but it came with a major red flag. Apparently, Greiner told Shelley she couldn't cash the check, and to make things worse, she told the entrepreneur she wanted 70% of the company for the same price. While all of this was going on, Show No Towels secured a lucrative contract with Disney, but the products just didn't sell. And the corporate juggernaut wasn't too happy with the profit margins either. In the end, the company essentially just ran out of money. And coupled with the tensions between the founder and her main investor, this led to Show No Towels closing up shop shortly after. Shelley landed on her feet though. She claimed that Lori taught her some valuable lessons, and she now sells specialty towels for people with physical disabilities. That kind of proves that the failure wasn't her fault. But in the case of BodyJack, the blame fell entirely on the founder's shoulders. Fitness and weight loss are some of the most profitable niches you can get into. After all, everyone wants to trim a bit of fat and maybe add some muscle mass too. Cactus Jack Barringer claimed that the BodyJack could help people get better at push-ups, which made it a tantalizing proposition for Kevin Harrington and Barbara Corcoran. However, these savvy investors weren't just going to buy Jack's claims without some proof. So they told him he needed to lose 30 pounds to show that the product actually worked. Cactus Jack managed to pull it off, and he got 180 grand from the two investors in exchange for 50% ownership of his company. So, why did this clearly effective product fail? I'll be honest, nobody knows. The BodyJack just didn't sell for some strange reason, and Corcoran would go on to say that it was the worst investment she ever made. She also pointed the finger at Jack, claiming that he just ran off with her money. Funnily enough, Cactus Jack started his own e-commerce website about 6 years later, and it featured the BodyJack for sale. The company went bankrupt in July 2021, but the fact that he tried to sell the BodyJack without his partners really shows how shady Jack was. Unscrupulous founders are the mortal enemies of investors everywhere, but that's not the only thing that can sink companies. For Toy Guru, it was a mix of mismanagement and unsustainable growth. The founders referred to his idea as Netflix for toys. In a nutshell, parents could just rent toys for their kids instead of having to buy them, which could be a real lifesaver for some folks who can't spring for the actual toys but want to give their kids a good time once in a while. This was legitimately one of the best ideas that ever made their way to Shark Tank. So, unsurprisingly, Mark Cuban and Kevin O'Leary offered the founders $250,000 for a 50% stake. Unfortunately, the company got too big for its own good. With such a solid idea and the buzz generated by the appearance on national television, demand reached unimaginable levels, and the founders just couldn't keep up. The company didn't have enough stock to fulfill orders, and the founders soon realized that these toys were way more expensive than they'd thought. Cuban and O'Leary didn't do much to help. even though the founders hoped they'd use their network to land a more favorable contract with Mattel. And on top of that, shipping costs were extremely unpredictable. Each toy was a different size and shape, and the fact that the company offered free shipping became a very expensive proposition. If Toy-Guru had been given the chance to grow at its own pace, the founders might have seen some of these problems before they got out of hand. Instead, the company ended up tanking and never got close to its full potential. Considering Toy-Guru had 5 founders, I'd have assumed that conflict between them would have caused problems, but they were surprisingly copacetic the whole time. I can't say the same about Sweet Balls, though. Conveniently packaged balls of sugary baked goodness are available at your local grocery store. Who wouldn't want to get in on the ground floor of an idea like that? This is one of those products that should be everywhere, but for some reason, Sweet Balls ended up being a pretty unique concept that the investors practically fought each other over. Mark Cuban tossed his hat in the ring, pairing with Barbara for a $250,000 investment, and they were so enthusiastic that they only asked for a 25% share. Things were looking pretty good when they struck a deal with 7-Eleven. But sadly, the two founders, Cole Egger and James McDonald's, ended up in a heated dispute. Cole decided to break off and create his own company, Cake Balls. And needless to say, James took him to court for a lengthy legal battle. This meant that the company lost all of the momentum it gained, and customers that wanted the product weren't even sure what brand to go for. The Sweet Balls website went offline, then it started redirecting traffic to the Cake Balls site, and in all the confusion, people just lost interest. McDonald eventually got the website back, but the best he could do was run it as a side business. Clashing egos can destroy even the best of ventures, but at least these guys brought a product that delivered on its promises. Sure, it never really reached the store shelves where it belonged, but customers knew what they were signing up for. This brings me to perhaps the most shocking Shark Tank failure of all, the breathometer, which literally got banned by the FTC. On paper, the product sounded like solid gold. I mean, a portable breathalyzer with a convenient app? That's not just a money-making idea. It could save thousands of lives. All 5 sharks pitched in to put $1 million into the company, all in exchange for a 30% slice of the pie. And the founder, Charles Michael Yin, was poised to become one of Shark Tank's biggest successes. Small problem though, the product didn't work. It technically detected blood alcohol levels, but the readings were extremely inaccurate. To be more specific, the breathometer told you your blood alcohol levels were lower than they actually were. Can you imagine the carnage this would have caused? People could have used it after a night out, assumed they were okay to drive, and ended up in fatal accidents. This was such a serious situation that the FTC stepped in and banned the product, and Yin was forced to refund each and every customer. I guess that just goes to show that you need to do your due diligence in the world of business. Yin should have put more effort into product testing before the launch, and the fact that the sharks found themselves in such a huge mess is embarrassing, to say the least. So, from Mark Cuban's costly mistake with Hycon to the 6-month-long negotiation for You Smell Soap, these were the Shark Tank deals that failed miserably.